P&W is a small glass blowing business that Liz and I started because we enjoy the challenge of designing and making decorative functional objects for the home.
Here in the glass blowing studio, we design functional glassware that is sold at market, and so it's made to order. Everything we make, we know will be going somewhere. It's a total collaboration between the two of us. Jim's strength comes through in the forms of the glass and in the shapes of the objects or the handles or the bowls, and I usually work out the coloration, and that's sort of the strengths that we both bring to it, and that's, I think, what makes that product so successful.
The hot work appeals to me simply because I'm not the guy who can sit behind the desk. I can't help myself. I have to make things. It's a very fluid, spontaneous medium to work with. The beauty of it is that it's always moving and you get immediate results.
We use a lot of color in our glass, and I think that's exactly what people respond to. They use a lot of color for motion, but also the colors that complement one another. Locally, we sell to shops, little shops out on Block Island, out on Martha's Vineyard and Nantucket, but we also sell, across the country to high-end stores in almost every major city. So it's quite a range from the funky little shop to major department stores.
I love being in the glass blowing studio.
It really is still done very much the same way that it was done in the Middle Ages.
Twice a year, we go down to New York and we exhibit at the International Gift Show. And we sell to stores across the country. Once they order with us, we usually build a relationship that has gone on with some stores for over 20 years now. I think people are drawn to the colors, but when they pick up a glass, and because it has undulated surfaces to it, and everybody's able to hold it in a different way, it feels unlike machine-made glass. You can feel the handprint of somebody having made this. It's not extruded, it's not, a jelly jar. It's something that really has a life to it, and you can feel that.
This business has become basically our bread and butter, the basis of our economy, you might say. And these items are marketed and sold internationally. My original attraction to the material was like, oh God, I can make something, and it moves and it's fast and it's fun to play with and it's physical.
Such a hot material that you're always aware of where the glass is on the floor, but there's a certain choreography that happens naturally as you start to become a skilled glassworker. You know when the time is that you need to either heat or cool or act. It's really a dance of heat and gravity.
I love Providence. I love the scale of it. Over the years, we've cultivated a clientele that's very devoted. They know us. They know our families. They know our kids. That means a lot to me. I mean, it's a very sort of intimate relationship.
Pull the furnace up while
Both my grandfathers worked with their hands. They had the ability to see something, what others would consider a pile of rubble, and not see a pile of rubble, but see, oh, I can make something with that. And that's where I come from.
I've been always drawn to water. I grew up down on Long Island. My dad was a sailor. He had a beautiful boat that he brought. My parents were from England. He brought this boat over from England. And so we grew up as children on the boat every weekend. And we've always lived near the water, and there's just something I find very soothing about it. Over the past 30 years now, we've been going out to Block Island every summer, and it's a really calm time in our lives. And I'm able to sort of step away from my responsibilities and to do my own work. Block Island has just really beautiful light. You wake up in the morning, there's such clarity visually out there. And I love to be able to get out and paint. It's just so rich in color, and yet it's also, for me, just that personal freedom that I have to do my own work. The way we've sort of divided things up was physically to have studios at the house in our carriage house, and then to have our glassblowing studio, and it just helped to keep our mental state separate because you function in those studios differently. We moved here thinking that this was going to be our studio and only studio, and started working here, and that was great. And then I got pregnant, and we had our first child, and then it became obvious that we needed to make some money. You know, our nursery school bill was more than our RISD tuition, so it kind of changed the focus of things. The painting that I do, for the most part, I paint outdoors for several reasons, but mostly because I like the immediacy of seeing a scene and kind of responding to it in painting. It really is kind of a personal visual diary. A lot of times if I go back and look at my work year after year, I know exactly where I was when I was painting this and how I felt and what kind of day, and I can feel it for me, it brings back that response. And I just hope that I communicate that to others when they're looking at my work. Separating the studios was really important for us because this really was more of our own private space. I have a studio upstairs. Jim works downstairs.
The objects that I have made for the most part are functional objects. Taking very simple, commonplace objects and injecting some life, some personal interpretation into them that somehow makes them special, makes them more poetic, more, more than just the commonplace. Liz and I met in undergraduate school. She was studying graphics at Parsons School of Design, and I was working on a degree in art history. We met in the summer of 1976 and have been working together ever since then. We came to Providence in 1979 to study with Chihuly at RISD, and I got my graduate degree in 1981 in sculpture. The creative part is here in actually making the model. Models are usually made in wax. While certain elements of them may be made very spontaneously, the whole composition usually takes anywhere from a number of days to a few weeks to resolve. A plaster mold will be made of the finished piece, and the wax is melted out of the mold, and then the mold is ready to be put in the oven and cast with glass. These colors come from New Zealand, and they're formulated specifically for this kind of casting, and the quality of the glass is quite good. The molds are put in the oven. The casting is actually upside down, since you're casting through the base, and the billets are placed in the reservoir until the temperature is elevated in the kiln to the point where the billets melt and flow down into the void, which is the casting. These pieces will be heated up to 1500 degrees, held there for more or less 10 or 12, 15 hours. You can see as they melt down, they puddle out, flatten out, and ideally then flow into the mold. And then at that point, there'll be a gradual cooling process over the course of about 2 weeks. After the 2 weeks is up, you take the molds out, and you're able to break them away from the glass casting without breaking the casting itself. There are a wide range of venues in which I've exhibited and participated in exhibitions, everywhere from the public library in my hometown of New Iberia, Louisiana, to the Museo Correr, which is right there on Piazza San Marco in Venice. I consider myself a sculptor whose medium is not necessarily glass, but light. The varying densities and textural qualities in the surface of a piece carry and present the light differently. That's part of the magic that attracts me to the material that I use.